So far in our course, we've been dealing with codes that are written from the left side. You may notice we might have tried to center the text or add color or change the size, and that's done with CSS. What is CSS? CSS simply means cascading style sheet and is used to add styling to our HTML. So let me create another page so that we can start afresh. Now let me open that in the browser. I opened it with Live Server. Live Server is an extension that automatically reloads the browser whenever you save your code. You can install extensions by going to this extension icon here and just search for Live Server. I'm not going to the internet now, but if you search for Live Server, you should see it there and just click on install. Let me just run this simple HTML page. This styling. So assume we have a simple h1 text and we want to change the color. The fastest way to change the color is to use the style attribute. And before we use the style attribute, let me show you how CSS syntax works. To start using CSS, you first have to create a style tag. You can place a style tag anywhere, but it's best to place the style tag in the head. The style tag. So how CSS works is that you first type in the name of the element you wish to style or the selector. There are different types of selector. For now, let's just start by typing the name of the element, which is h1, and use curly braces, which is this brackets with a line in the middle. Then in between, you cannot type the syntax color, then column, and the color you want, let's say green for instance. If we save and reload, we didn't type anything in between. See, this is let's learn CSS. Now we can now see this. Let me use split screen so we can have it clear what I'm saying. Okay, so you can now see that it adds a color of green. We can also change the color. So let's say gold. Or if you are familiar with color codes, you can also use the Rgb color code. Rgb meaning red, green, blue. Then the first value represents the red value. Let's say range from 0 to 255. So 255 meaning the highest, 0, 0. This should be red. I can see that now. But for now, let's just stick with using plain colors. Let's call it green. So we have that. Another CSS. Before we continue, after writing a line of CSS code, you should end it with a colon, a semicolon rather, before writing the next code. So we also have background. Background, and this changes the color of the background of the element. And let me show you something. If I set it to gray, there we have this. We can now see that the background of this h1 tag is gray, and it's from left all through to the right, and that's because I said h1 by default is a block level element, so it occupies the whole block or the whole paragraph. That's why the whole background is gray. Let's change this to another color. Let's call it white. Also, apart from colors, we can also change the alignment of the text by using text align to center. And that aligns our text center. We also have text align to right. Aligns the text right also, but the default text align is the left. But since it's default, we don't need to set it to left. So let's change this to center. Now that we had a quick look at CSS, I just want us to dive deeper into how CSS really works. CSS works by associating rules with HTML elements. These rules govern how the content of the specific element should be displayed. The CSS rules contain two pairs, a selector and a declarator. So just like the code we wrote, the selector was the, but in this case the selector is the P tag and the declarator is what style should be applied to the P tag. So before you can write CSS code, you first have to choose the selector, which is the name of the tag or the ID or the class. We'll learn more about what ID or class is later on. But for now, let's use the name of the tag as a selector. So after selecting the tag, we use curly braces. Then in between those curly braces, we write the rules of we write the styling rules that should be applied to that tag. The CSS declarator sits inside curly braces and each is made up of two parts, a property and a value separated by a colon. You can specify several properties in one declaration, each separated by a semicolon. So for instance, you can change the color, you can change the font family, you can change the font size, you can change the padding, the margin. We'll learn how to do all of that very soon. There are three ways CSS are being loaded into our HTML code. We can either do it directly like we did it here by writing it in between a style tag, or we can write it in an external .css file and link it to the HTML page, which is the best practice anyway. Or we can write it as an attribute of in between the opening tags of an element. For instance, if we add an h2 tag, say this, and those are called inline styles. This is an inline style. Can then give it a style property, and in between the style property we also write CSS there. For instance, we can write color. Let me take this away. Color, we have the column, then the name of the color, let's call it blue. We save this. We now see our h2 with the blue color. So it's the same syntax we write as it's the same declarator we write in the normal curly braces. We also write in the style attribute within the opening tags of an element. So let's take things step by step. Let's learn about styling text in CSS. Assuming we have a long paragraph, so how do we select this in CSS? We can select it using the regular P tag, then the curly braces, then in between curly braces. There are different styling a text. There are different ways we can style a text in CSS. We can change the font size. We can do that by using the font size property. Size and font size accept certain values. First, we can specify how large one size to be in numbers. Let's say 20. Then we specify a unit. There are different units we can use. We can use centimeters, we can use EM, we can use EX, we can use PC, we can use points, we can use pixels. But I strongly advise for now we use pixels because they appear consistent across different screen sizes. So we save this and reload. You can see the text now appears larger. Okay, so apart from the sizes, we can also style the fonts. like to what font family we use. What are font families? Font families are the appearance of the text in which we are styling. For instance, we can set a font family to any type of font we want. For instance, we can use, let's try impact. Sorry, so we can ask that this changes the font style. So yeah, we can also add multiple font families to just one text in case one font doesn't load, so it tries to load the other. So we add multiple font families by adding commas, just like so. So the way this works, if impact is not available, area will load. If area is not available, vertical will load. If that's not available, sans serif will load. So since if we just take away this impact, see area will load. Okay, so I want to introduce to you something in the browser called the inspector. What is an inspector? Inspector is a feature of the browser which is used to check the code of the page you are currently viewing. So how do we inspect an element on code? You can just right click on any part of the site and click on inspect. By doing so, we can immediately see the code for the and we can just go through this inspector. But the part of this inspector I want to show us is this styles tab. Here we can see the styles applied to H1. If we click on P, we can see the styles attached applied to P. You can see the font family. Then we also notice that there are some other stylings by the user agent. So we may ask a question: where does this styling come from? The user agent is basically the interface used to view the web page, which is the browser. So different browsers have different default stylings. I will show you how to reset all browser default stylings in later videos. The inspector is a useful tool for we developers. So it helps us debug our code. You can also type some code here just for testing. But once we reload, the styles we type in the inspector, the code we type in the inspector disappears automatically. So you can see that by immediately it's taking effect just by typing the inspector. But once we reload, they are all gone. So if you are using a Windows, there's a shortcut for opening the inspector which is Ctrl+Shift+I. Automatically, you can just right click and click on inspect and it will show the inspector view. There's still various stylings that can be carried on text. We are not limited to just font size and font font. We also have font weight, which is used to control the thickness or the boldness of the text. So we can 100 has the least font weight, while 700 has the highest font weight. After font weight, we have line height, which controls the height of the line. And what is a line? A line is basically the distance between each paragraph or each line. You can just set the line height to values without a unit. That will work in ratio with the current font size. For instance, if we set the line height to 2, take 2 times of the font size, or we set it to 1.5, take 1.5 times of the font size. But we set the line height to evaluate a unit, for instance pixels. Each line will take 10 pixels regardless of the font size. So to get more data, we can change it to like 40 pixels. Save 40 pixels of space on the screen. Text transform is used to change case of the word, either to uppercase or lowercase. You can set it to uppercase, it changes everything to capital letter. We can also set it to lowercase, which is the default, or capitalize, which will Make each first letter of every word to be in capital letters, while every other word remains in small letters. There are a lot of stylings that can be applied on text. You can go through it in this ebook. Let's go through all of these. They're all self-explanatory. You can also experiment with them in the inspector.